party of our community creative writing anthology, which for 3 years has been discovering and championing some terrific talent across the borough. This year's theme, Outer Limits and Hidden Lives, celebrates the experience on the outer limits of London. Can I call up our first writer for this evening, who's going to read to us? Please welcome, Go Crazy, for Sola Janet Brown.
This poem is called Roundhouse. My first house was a roundhouse. No four walls, just constantly curving horizons enveloping my mass. Folded in the folds of her middle, my DNA was still but a riddle. Not yet fully pieced together, I miss the peace I had within her. My first town centre was around her centre. Her womb, my first local. My mother, my first home. My native land, the motherland. I wish I could go back. They are constantly telling us to go back. Thank you.
Please welcome Jordan Friend.
This poem's called Big Boys Cry Too. You cried when you realised, not happy or sad, just relieved you're gay. Getting it out in the open was so liberating, like bursting out of a glass coffin, shattering your own perceptions. You are free to be me, you feel brand new. Moulded separate from yourself, with tears streaming furrows into your skin, soaking off the lies and misconceptions you always held about yourself. You're gay. The word enraptures you, captures you, and you are grateful for it, moulding it around yourself. Gay, gay, gay as in happy, gay as in liking men and others. You wanted to kill yourself for so long, but you are past that now. You are past the times of wanting to drag that rusty nail from the shed into your veins and just forget everything. Gay is the best catch-all, because you know you are definitely not straight, and opening this up now, you are no longer sure of anything. You have rejected the binary, male or female, straight or gay. You are discovering yourself again. Nothing is clean-cut anymore. Your identity is being rewritten. The ones and zeros of you are different now. You are a new machine, rewired, relearning. You are infant again, touch-starved and impatient. You are learning. You have disassembled the matrix and are making yourself new, like lightning striking honey. You are bursting onto the scene, all energy and sweetness and severity. You are a boy made of magic, and you are finding it organically. You are ready for the chills, for the thrills of a new you. You are excited for it, and you are ready for love. An all-encompassing fuck you love. Want to yell from the rooftops about someone special, organic, orgasmic love. You are fireworks exploding in the daytime, unexpected but no less irreverent. A shout from the rooftops, I am new. And even though you have been crying, you remember that big boys cry too. You are just you, spreading open your curtains in search for all things bold and new.
Please would you welcome Russell Christie.
Reading an excerpt from a short story is a bit like reading half a poem. Often in short stories, as in poetry, the beginning needs to be read again in the light of the ending. So before I read my submission to the anthology, I'll just tell you the direction that it goes in. The beginning leads to the current situation in Syria, and also leads to a description of how a number of Russian oligarchs obtained their wealth. The piece is called The Honeybees of Syria. It was while teaching English in Odessa, Ukraine, that I heard how the most expensive honey is made. In the desert, long way in the desert, far from anywhere, far from any flowers. My family have a farm. They grow honeybees there. They make honey. This special honey. Please try, my teacher. It is lemon. Eat it with a spoon. We were sitting in a large office in an ornate 19th century building on Pushkin Boulevard. The ceilings of the grand room were high, and tall windows overlooked the plane trees of the street. The sound of traffic over cobbles drifted up, muffled and hushed by leaves and by floor-to-ceiling curtains. 3 large desks, pushed together, occupied the room, and at the head of them sat Adnan, my student. Please try, my teacher. In front of me, on a silver tray, was a glass of tea and a small pot of honey. Set honey, the pale amber of double cream. Adnan looked at me eagerly, perhaps hungry to taste my pleasure vicariously and rekindle a lust that had become jaded with wealth. I sat up squarely on my office chair and leaned toward the silver tray. The damp tannins and mint of the tea drifted toward me. I took a moment to inhale this first sensory array. Adnan had not yet fully informed me of the origins of this honey, but I knew the 19th century room I was sitting in, and I knew Adnan's wealth and something of how he acquired it. Nothing is ever separate from its situation, and no perception devoid of the contextual interpretations we bring to it. All gathered now around this little pot. It is always both what I know and my ignorance that appears in the taste of things, like a gap that experience will fill. I held the silver spoon and felt the stiff honey yield as I dipped into the pot. Its stickiness grasped the spoon. I lifted out a mound of pale meringue which sighed as it gave. A moment as everything stopped. And then the lemon came. A perfume released, its mild notes gliding toward me on a cloud above the tea and mint, and then overwhelming the leather of my chair. I can smell the lemon, I said. I slowly moved the loaded substance beneath my nose and into my mouth, closed my lips around it, and it melted into a springtime of blossoms. Small petals fell on my tongue and spilled there in crystal lemon sherbet pools. I saw sun reflected from water in caves of darkness, blue and yellow light on the roof of caverns. Good? Is it good? I savoured it so he could savour it. Creamy ballerinas danced around my mouth. Thank you.
And our next writer, is Angela Nari.
Images of Eastbourne. Jangled notes through a seagull sky, his skin leathered, lean with wanderings, a cap upturned, hopeful, on curl-edged cover, a dog-eyed, ragged ear, half-cocked, and drooping eye watching, hesitating, fumbling for change amid plaintive vocals, all along the watchtower, swimming along pensioner-filled benches and fish and chip lunches in polystyrene boxes, through wheelchairs and mobility scooters and foreign students like clouds drifting, babies pass in buggies drunk on sea air, sun-creamed children with lolly red lips and buckets and spades trailing and trainers flashing, roller skaters freestyling, and a strange army with dreadlocks and drumbeats tattooed and pierced, strutting their wares, ahead stripy deck chairs and bandstands protruding, and the wind-washed pier and arthritic limb reclining. The polished pebbled beach and the sea brave, with seaweed toes and salt-dipped tongues, heads bobbing like toffee apples, limbs askew angled through waves, slimy and slick like the back of toads, and the seabed dark, crab-clawed and eel-soft, beady-eyed and jellyfish stinging. The sharpness of coin tossed one on another. He doesn't look up as bodies move past. In the night, upturned, facing the cracks in the ceiling, life clings like a shadow. His downward glance, lank hair falling, folded over his guitar like an attentive lover. His notes linger over eggshell flesh and barrel chest crackling, a thread of saliva falling, mid slanting waves and crooked shoreline, halcyon days of youth return, silver and gold flashing. Fierce and fearless, free jumping over walls and railings, wave-like, over ornamental flower beds and fairy-lit pathways, past rough sleepers in dark corners, across driftwood, flint and sharp shell beach shifting, under aching stars, the belly of sea hissing and heaving, beating out its ceaseless rhythm, sucking me in, Jonah-like, deep inside its glittering belly, amoebic, returning to the mud and slime of shapeless form and impenetrable darkness.
Put your hands together for Sarah Bader.
My piece is called Kutcher Butcher, which is meaning somebody of mixed Indian and English origin. In stories, grandfather always described the family house in New Delhi as a palace. 3 stories tall, so many bedrooms you would get lost wandering around. A gigantic roof big enough for playing badminton as well as sleeping under the stars. We would hear how we'd have servants waiting on us, ready to attend to our every need. It was the stuff of dreams. By the time I reached India a decade after these stories were told, the once gleaming marble house had fallen into disrepair. A layer of dust covered every surface. Furniture was disintegrating, now largely unusable. I sat on the roof, barren apart from dirt and rubble, and imagined my dad and his brothers 20 years ago, having water fights and eating meals. Sat Sri Akal. That's the limit of my Punjabi. The relatives I meet are frustrated to learn that I'm not able to converse with them, that I only speak English. My Indian genes may as well not exist. I feel useless. I feel white. My visit to the place my dad was born was a culture shock, to say the least. We were given a warm welcome when we arrived. It felt like the whole village had turned out. I had no idea who anyone was, but my grandmother and aunts greeted everyone in turn as though they had only seen each other last week. We were led through narrow streets to the small house where my dad was born. It felt claustrophobic. The house itself was painted a pale blue colour with dark blue shutters. It looked to me like a toy house, big enough for 1 or 2 people perhaps, but not a whole family. What struck me on this visit was how little people had. Their homes were functional, no decorations and only the most basic of furniture. I saw my dad become emotional when an elderly lady sitting across the room from us told him how she remembered him as a small boy. This visit must have felt something like a homecoming of sorts for my dad. Whilst I was pondering on my dual identity, I suppose he was too. He was an Indian who was raised in Britain, who had brown skin but spoke with an English accent and supported QPR. I never supposed my dad struggled with his identity, and I never asked him, but he must have felt the same quandary I did.
I'm very happy that I was not one of the judges who had to judge a winner here, because I think the quality of the work is so great I would really have had problems. And I'm sure it will continue with our next reader-writer. Would you please welcome Eden Kofi Joseph.
Fear of love. How many seconds have I been able to look my father in both eyes for? 1, 2, 3. Let me tell you a secret. I have flashbacks. My godfather in his garden in Ruislip. His huge feet planted over the weed-ridden patio. Bending at the knees, launching his daughter into the air, and her voice bellowing from her tiny lungs with laughter and joy. In the photo that captured that moment, you could see their eyes were locked to each other's. The longest I had stared into another man's eyes, probably the minute before a madness was about to kick off. Or that 3 or 4 seconds, sitting in the barber's chair, reverse mirror in his hand, eyebrows raised expectantly, like a boy handing his end-of-year grades to his dad. A nod. Moments of expectation, of build-up, all for a nod. Yeah, that's calm. How many seconds have you been able to look your friend in the eye for? Even in Premier League catch-ups on Uxbridge Road, Sam's Chicken, Spicy 2 for 2, and Glucose Fizzy Strawberry Mirinda. Or 1 or 2 beers in the least racist-looking pub we could find. I wonder if talk of women, boxing, football, actually do us a disservice. And instead of bringing us closer as men or as brothers in the battle, they actually push us further apart, shielding us from expressing our feelings. Who's the closest thing to a man in your life, cuz? Your dad? Your mum? Me? Have you ever shouted at your son and winced when you saw him flinch? So you're meditating, yeah? Well, go on. Your beard is sick. You know what? I thank God that I've got a friend like you. In times of need, you're my brother. I love you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Lorraine Collins.
My piece is called The Enemy Within, and this is an extract from it. And this extract is called About Michael. Most people had a lucky number, but Michael had a lucky letter, H. He bought his first home with his new bride in Harrow and started his business there. As success came, he moved his young family and business to Hillingdon. He even called his house Halcyon, although Julia had raised an eyebrow at that one. And if anyone asked him to describe his life, he would say, happy and healthy. Now, as he sat in his chair, staring out the window, the letter D had taken over. D for dementia. He couldn't articulate the word out loud, but he knew people used to understand when he referred to his problem and gesticulated in place of words. Now Michael sensed he'd been sucked into another world. Sometimes a flutter of a thought would pass through his mind, like a hovering butterfly. But just as he was about to grasp it, the recognition would fly away, and like the butterfly, glittering so brilliantly and briefly, it would fade into oblivion. The thought degenerated into the ugly sister of a dying moth, beating its dark, nocturnal wings futilely as it tried to enter his world. He got scared, looking in the mirror, and he wondered who that old man was in front of him, looking so unkempt. Perhaps it was the enemy. He knew he'd get into trouble with the sergeant for not being properly turned out, and he'd probably end up on double guard duty. Trouble was, he can't find his uniform anywhere. Perhaps his mother had hidden it again to stop him going back to the barracks. She was always doing that. She would laugh and say she missed him so much when he was gone. Mum, where's the army stuff? I need it now. Julia walked into the room to find all the clothes in the drawers scattered on the floor. She'd forgotten to put the padlocks on them last night. Her knees were aching so much, but she'd have to get on the floor and put it all away. Love, it's me, your wife, Julia. You're not in the army anymore, so you don't have to worry. But why don't you let me help you get dressed? Comb your hair. You begin up inspection then. You'll be my smartest soldier in the regiment. Julia summoned all her reserves of patience as she looked bleakly into the days and weeks ahead. As she calmed Michael down and began the routine of dressing him for the day, she silently thanked the nuns in the children's home. At least being lonely and unloved had made her resilient and taught her how to deal with the absence of hope. Never had she needed it more.
Now we come to announce the winner. Now before we do, can I just say Sola, Jordan, Russell, Angela, Sarah, Eden and Lorraine, congratulations. You've done a really great job. That was really some beautiful readings there. Before I started my life as an academic, way back in the late 80s and early 90s, I was a creative writer and I wrote short stories and poems. And you know, one of the greatest moments in my life still is that moment when I got something published for the first time. And maybe all of you are well published already, I don't know. If you are or if you're not, whatever, you've been published, you're in there, that's a really significant moment for you. So congratulations. I wanted to read something out from the head of the judges about the winner. Now, when I read this out, it'll probably give away who's won, but I'll read it out anyway. And the head of judges was our own Daljit Nagra. And he said about the winning piece, "This would not be out of place in a Granta anthology. It melds the efficacy of honey production with the efficiency of mass exploitation. Knowledge that tempers the natural world also brutalizes it for gain. This astonishing story, with its subtle and looping sensual sentences, exposes one man's shadowing of the elite power bases that suck life from Ukraine, Syria, and vast swathes of Africa. A sophisticated and timely winner of the Hillingdon Prize from a series of very strong entries to the competition." So our winner is this year, Russell Christie. So we have got...
I'm afraid it cost the whole amount though, so...
Thank you very much.
There you go.